how it's going to happen. So the session will be in English, but it is translated into Russian. So I would kindly ask all of you to turn off the microphone before we say that here's interactive part. So please turn on your microphones and you can ask the questions or comment on something. This is the first thing. The second one, you can basically choose the language you would love to listen to the workshop. So basically you can see that at the bottom of your Zoom window, you see some kind of globus image where you can choose the language. So if you prefer to listen the workshop in Russian, since it will be in English, you can choose Russian language. And also, as I said, I see there's some messages already in the chat. So I would kindly ask you to be interactive and active. So you can ask your questions in the chat, just write it down. And especially since we have so many content to cover, you can write it down right away so you don't forget it. And I'm going to moderate and choose the more relevant one and transfer it to Vladimir. So we're ready to start. So I will turn off my microphone and the camera. So I pass Vladimir the words to you.
Thank you, Alim. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you all for a fantastic day yesterday. I absolutely enjoyed my time during the keynote. And thanks to all of you, I really hope that today's session will be even better because it will be interactive. You will be able to ask questions and both on chat and live. So I will be making a few breaks throughout my presentation. So whenever you see something that's interesting to you, you can, as Alim said, either write it down or write it immediately in the chat window. And then when I make a break, Alim can ask me all the questions. Feel free to use both Russian and English, and then Alim will translate to me. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so the topic for today is how to reinvent the company for the digital age. And whenever you hear the words once upon a time, you know that what happens is going to be a fairy tale. And whenever you hear the words a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, you know that what happens is going to be a Star Wars movie. Yes, for those of you who have been there yesterday, you already know that I'm a sci-fi geek, and you already know that my friend here, Master Yoda, is watching over my back. And whenever you hear the words, we live in times of great change, you know that the person standing in front of you is a management consultant. Yes, I'm a management consultant, and a management consultant literally cannot open his mouth without saying the words, we live in times of great change. There's even a joke that as soon as a management consultant opens up his laptop, starts Microsoft Word, Word automatically starts writing, we live in times of great change, and then it's up to you to continue writing. But we talk a lot about change. But what kind of change are we actually facing? Well, before going over to the business side and explaining what does change look like in business, I will tell you a short personal story about how change impacted my life and my profession. As Alim already mentioned, I've spent 12 years teaching strategic management at the university. This is School of Economics, University of Montenegro, the place where I used to teach for 12 years. And I started very young. So my age was very similar to the age of students. And then it was very easy for me to connect with them on a level of pop culture. So we were basically watching pretty much the same movies, listening to the same music. going to the same sports events. So when we are in the classroom, I usually started off my classes with something regarding pop culture so that they can relate to what I'm actually saying. Their experience is related to my experience. And then I continue teaching them strategic management. So one day, it was Monday, my class was at 8 a.m., first year of studies, introduction to management, 500 students. So it was very early. I was still kind of sleepy. And I quoted a famous management thinker. And then I wanted to say the name of the thinker. However, I couldn't remember the name. And I was like, what's the name of the guy? What's the name of the guy? And some student from the back row yelled out the name of the management thinker. And I said, yes, thank you. That's it. You can be my wingman anytime. I quoted a famous line from a very famous movie. But nothing happened. If you know what movie I'm talking about, feel free to write it in the chat window. But please do not use Google, do not use Yandex. Let's play fair. So if you know, write it down in the chat window. And no one knew in the class. And I said, okay, class, I'm sorry. You probably didn't hear what I've said. I said, you can be my wingman anytime. And nothing happened. So I said, okay, this is a famous line from a famous movie. And I'm going to quote another line from the same movie and try to guess what movie this is. So I said, I feel the need. And then I went all in like in the movie, the need for speed. And nothing happened. No one knew the name of the movie. So I said, okay, let's try one more time. Son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash. And yet again, no one could remember the name of the movie. So I was getting pretty much desperate and I said, okay, I'm going to give you one more clue, one more try. Take me to bed or lose me forever. And then in a second, I was like, oh my God, you cannot say these things at the university. Sorry, kids, sorry. Yes, Urunov, I don't know what's the first name, but yes, thank you. The movie is Top Gun. Thank you. But before you guessed it, I had one more go. I was so desperate that I told the kids, okay, kids, what's the Tom Cruise's most famous movie ever? So write down in the chat window, what did 500 students yell immediately? All of them together. What's Tom Cruise's most famous movie? Mission Impossible. Thank you, Said. Exactly. So 500 students yelled out, Mission Impossible. And I was like, what? Mission what? No. I mean, Mission Impossible is important. It's a good movie. It's a good serial, but it's not the most important. And they were like, yeah, of course it is. So I said, okay, guys, let me show you a photo. So I downloaded a photo from the internet and I showed this photo. And I said, okay, what is this? And everyone was like, well, it's Tom Cruise in a fighter jet. And I said, okay, let me download another photo with the logo. What is this? And they were like, well, Tom Cruise standing upon on the logo of Top Gun. And I'm like, does anyone here know what Top Gun is? And no one knew. So for a second there, I felt like the principal in Simpsons. Am I the one who's out of touch? And then I was like, no. It has to be the damn children who are wrong. It can't be me, right? Because I've been here for a couple of years. And every time Students knew what the movie was. So what's wrong now? What's wrong with these kids? Well, it turned out that nothing is wrong with the kids. There was something wrong with me. And what was wrong is that I was getting old. The age gap between me and my students started to increase. So the movies I was watching, they didn't even heard about. So I had two choices. One choice is to go with the flow, to continue what I was doing for the past 5, 6, 7 years, and just don't care about what the students are doing. Or I could actually change. I could actually change what I was watching, listening to, going to games, and trying to empathize with my students, to keep up with the times. So I said, okay, kids, here's the deal. You tell me what's the one show you are watching at the moment, back when this happened, and I promise I will watch it and then we can talk about it. And to my horror, they said, we watch Gossip Girl. I didn't know what Gossip Girl was, but because I promised that I'm going to watch it, I actually did. And my head was like this big with all the teenage problems. But I promised the kids. However, I became a cool professor once again. And then when I exited the class, I would just wave to them and say, you know you love me, XOXO, and everyone would go crazy. So a couple of years went by, and I again quoted the line from Gossip Girl. However, nothing happened. And I was like, why? Come on, like, why don't you react? This is your favorite show. But the new students said, no, that's Gossip Girl. Like, no one watches Gossip Girl. And I'm like, but your colleagues from a few years ago told me that it's the most popular TV show. Yes, but that was a couple of years ago. Okay, just tell me what you are watching now and I will watch it. And they said Pretty Little Liars. So I thought Gossip Girl was bad, but Gossip Girl is Oscar-worthy material compared to Pretty Little Liars. Like, that's like Francis Ford Coppola directed Gossip Girl compared to this. So, as you can guess now already, a few years passed by, I quoted a line from Pretty Little Liars, and they were like, oh, this professor is a dinosaur. And I said, okay, let's cut the chase. Just tell me the name of the TV show you're watching. This was 3 years ago. And they said Dynasty. And I was like, yes, thank you, God, Dynasty. I know Dynasty. My parents used to watch Dynasty like 30 years ago. All the neighbors came to my mom's house. They were drinking tea and coffee. And I know everything about Dynasty. This is Blake. This is Fallon. This is Crystal. And they were watching at me and they were like, what are you talking about? And I said, Dynasty. You said you watch Dynasty. Yeah, but we watch Dynasty. And I'm like, what's this? Well, this is Blake. This is Fallon. This is Crystal. And I'm like, okay, this is Blake. No. This is Blake. So as the kids say, it was hashtag mind blown. They didn't have a clue that the Dynasty is an original show from 30, 40 years ago, and this is just a reboot. And I didn't know that there's a new version of Dynasty being recorded at the moment. So both of us were in for pretty much shock. So that's a short story about how my life, my profession as a teacher has changed in order to keep up with what my students were doing. Now let's go on to the business world and see what kind of change are we actually facing in the business world. Well, if you take a look at 500 biggest companies in the US and you compare their lifespan, so from the point in time they were founded until the point in time they went bankrupt. So in the 20s, it was 67 years. And ever since then, it's been shortening. 57 years, 30 years, 24 years. We're waiting for the new research, but we think it's somewhere around 20 years now in year 2020, and it will probably go down. If you take into account the last 15 years and the whole history, so you will see that 7 out of 10 biggest bankruptcies in the world have actually occurred in the past 15 years, and only 3 in the rest of history. And then if you take account single largest market capitalization losses in history. So one day, the loss at the stock exchange. Last 10 years, 8 out of 10 biggest ones. And the rest of history, just 2. And now you take a snapshot of 1,000 biggest companies. Just 10 years ago, and you compare it to 1,000 biggest companies right now. And you will see that 70% of these companies are not on the list anymore. Just in just 10 years. So if you want to see how does change look like visualized, take a look at this photo. It's the same sports, Formula 1. It's the same team, Sauber. It's the same part of the car, the steering wheel. There's just a difference of about 20 years. So the steering wheel on the left looks like a kid's toy. This looks like my little nephew can drive the car. But the steering wheel on the right, with all the buttons, levers, bells, and whistles, looks like it came straight out of a Top Gun movie. So this is what technology did to our workplace. The driver of the car hasn't changed in these 20 years. The human being, the person, hasn't changed. But his work changed a lot, as you can see. So what do we expect? Well, we expect that we need to educate ourselves better and to have a lot more training. So that's what's going on in the world, right? Well, that's what we would like to be going on in the world. What is actually going on in the business world is the reverse thing. The days of training that a worker gets from its employer, the company, is going down. So from 17 days to 11 days. So our workplace is getting more complex and more difficult by the moment. We are required to train, to educate ourselves a lot more, but our employers are actually giving us less and less time, free time for training. Okay, so you all know this guy, Charles Darwin, the father of the theory of evolution. And you might not have read his books, but the one thing you know for sure, you did it in your biology class, is his famous sentence, "It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change." So it doesn't matter if you're the strongest one, the fastest one, the oldest one, the most beautiful one. It's not going to keep you alive or in business. The one thing that matters is how are you able to change? How often and how much? Now we're going to play a short game. So I'm going to show you one bullet point, one bullet point, one bullet point, one bullet point, and your job is to try to guess the name of the person. And you can try as many times as you want. So if you think you know the answer, just write it down in the chat window. And you can try as many times as possible. Okay, so let's go with the first one. The mystery person is an American pop singer, a woman. She released her first album in 1983. So Britney Spears, Britney's too young. Alim says Madonna. Madonna actually did release her first album in 1983, but it's not Madonna. So you were very close. Both of these are true, but it was not Madonna. Beyonce still
I was thinking I destroyed the whole game, sorry.
Cher could be, but it's not. Okay, let's see this one. She's the first singer in history to have 4 singles from the same album in top 5 best-selling songs. So she released this album in the same year as Madonna, but she was more popular than Madonna with her first album. No, Celine Dion is actually Canadian and our mystery singer is American, so no. She sold more than 25 million albums, so she's multi-time platinum artist. At the beginning, more popular than Madonna. She has won basically, no, it's not Cher. Bruno, thank you, but it's not Cher. She had won every single music award there is. Barbara Streisand could be said, but it's not. But take a look at one award. It says, yes, Aidana, thank you. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Aidana, so congratulations to you. Yes, it's actually Cyndi Lauper. So a lot of people, even when I show the photo, don't know who she is. Some people, even when I show the name of the singer, Cyndi Lauper, don't know who she is. However, everyone knows the songs. When I thank you, Said, I know who Allah is, and she might look like Miss Pugacheva. But everyone knows her songs. Time After Time, I Drove All Night, Girls Wanna Have Fun, and so on. So how on earth could she be that popular, but some of the people don't know who she is nowadays? So what happened? Okay, so you can check out these songs on YouTube later on, and I'm sure you at least know some of them. So what happened? What happened was that Madonna was changing with the times. She was evolving. And Cyndi Lauper stayed true to what she was actually doing. Yes, she's recording even nowadays. She has a tour and a new album nowadays, but she kept recording the same thing she did way back in 1983, which is a perfectly good thing and a perfectly fine thing, especially if you were there for my keynote yesterday on customer experience. But you have to keep in mind that there will be a limited number of fans who will want to listen the same kind of music for the past 30 years. So that's perfectly fine. But if you want to be on top of the market and for the mainstream market to actually buy your products, you probably need to change like Madonna has been changing from one album to another. To put it in business words, tomorrow's profitability, so the profits of your company tomorrow, depend on today's evolvability. So your willingness and your opportunity to change today, to evolve, will determine your profitability tomorrow. So this has been Darwin, the good old Charles Darwin. But what happens when digital Darwin takes place? What is digital Darwinism? Well, that's the time when society and business are evolving faster than the ability of many organizations to adapt. To put it in other words, the pace of change outside our organizations is actually bigger and faster than the rate of change inside our organizations and businesses. So the environment is changing more than our organizations are changing. So the time we live in right now is actually the time of digital Darwin. The environment is changing, but we have to keep up with change. And now let's try and put this on a chart. So the x-axis, the horizontal axis shows the susceptibility to future disruption, future change. How likely are you that your industry will face change in the future? The y-axis, the horizontal axis, is current, today's level of change. How has your industry changed already? So take a look at this one. So capital markets. Vertical x-axis, not that big. So the current level of change is not that big, hasn't changed a lot. But what is going to happen in the future? Horizontal axis, there will be huge change. On the other hand side, let's take a look at communications and media. The vertical axis, the current level of change is huge. That industry has changed a lot already. The horizontal axis, how is it going to change in the future? Well, not that much, because it has already changed a lot. So now, depending on the both vertical and horizontal axis, there are 4 quadrants. So the first quadrant, current level of change is big, the future level of change is low. That's communications and media, high tech, and software. Second quadrant, durability quadrant. Current level of change is low, future level of challenge is low. That's life sciences and healthcare. The third one, the biggest one, current level of change low, future level of change, it's going to be huge. So that's automotive, cars, energy, utility, natural resources, including oil and coal, capital markets, and banking. And the final one, the scariest one, is the fourth one, where the current level of change is big and the future level of change is going to be big. So that's the toughest one. Retail, consumer goods, infrastructure, transportation, and insurance. So if your business is operating within this quadrant, it's going to have very hard time. So now, depending on what quadrant you are in, depends on what are you going to do in the future. So if you are in the first quadrant, the viability, first one, then you need to create your next cutting edge, to embrace, to actually use new digital technology to develop potentially new ideas. If you are in the second quadrant, the durability quadrant, you are safe for now. But what you need to do is actually invest, fund your future bets. Invest in innovative opportunities and try to realize new opportunities for growth. If you are in the third quadrant, vulnerability, you need to try and find partners to help you scale. So try and find startups or other innovative companies and try to grow together. If you are in the fourth quadrant, the most scary one, then you need to try to change yourself from the inside, to disrupt yourself, not to wait for some other company to disrupt you, but try to change within. Your research and development function needs to be big. You need to have either innovation labs or digital factories, depending on how you actually call them. So some of you know this guy. His name is Scott Galloway. He's a professor at NYU Stern School of Business, and he's the author of the book, The Four. The Four refers to Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Apple. So what are the big four technology companies all about? And I recommend you read the book. So now here's a question for you. The year we are in right now is 2004. So let's go back in time. And you can buy stock, you can buy shares of only one tech giant, one of these four: Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon. So which one are you going to buy and hope that the price of the shares will increase the most by May 2020? So you buy one, you wait until 2020, and the one who is going to bring you most money will be, now it's your turn. Write in the chat box which stock are you going to pick. So Google or just one, Google or Apple. Facebook, Google. So Aidana said Google or Apple. Madina says Facebook. Urunov says Google. Alim says Amazon. Zarina says Amazon. Another Amazon. Another Amazon. Apple. Apple. Okay, so let's see who made the most money. So this is the chart, the stock performance of these stocks. So let's see who did best. So Google actually did the worst. One thing, when I say the worst, they actually did fantastic, splendid, absolutely great. It's just that compared with these four, they were the one whose stock increased the least. Next one is Facebook. The second best one is Apple. And yes, as most of you have guessed, the best performing stock was Amazon. So to all the Amazon people, congratulations. However, what you also see in this chart is the fifth stock. But I only said there's four of them. So what could be this fifth technological stock? Well, it turns out it's, what's this? This is the logo of what company? No, it's, yeah, it could be YouTube or Tesla before I showed the logo. But now that you've seen the logo, what is this company? I'm not sure if it's present, if it's available in Kazakhstan. I haven't been to Kazakhstan before. I was hoping that I'll do it this year. Hopefully, if the pandemic stops, we'll do it for the Go Viral next year. Yes, Gauhar says some kind of a pizza company. Yes, that pizza company is, for example, it's an American pizza company, but let's say it's available in Russia. Yes, yes. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name, Aslujan. I'm sorry. Bilimbayeva is the last name, I'm for sure. Yes, as Bilimbayeva said, it's Domino's Pizza. So it is, I know for a fact that it's available in Russia. As I said, I'm not sure is it available in Kazakhstan. So Domino's Pizza has been Yeah, thank you. I'm correct with the pronunciation. It was by far the best performing stock. But now you're saying, Vanya, didn't you say the best performing technological stock? Yes, I did. But how can a pizza company be a tech company? Because it can. Because the digital transformation within Domino's has been so profound that Domino's is actually using more technology than most of these companies within the tech sector, within the tech industry. You know that the Domino's promises that from the moment that you ordered pizza by phone, on their website, or on their application, if the pizza is not in your home within 30 minutes, 30 minutes, you get your pizza for free. So you order it. If it's not in your house in 30 minutes, you get the pizza for free. And as on Uber or on Yandex, you can actually track where your pizza is at the moment. So it's still in the kitchen, it's getting prepared, it's ready, it's with the delivery boy. And then on the map, you can see where your pizza is moving and how far is it away from you. They are already testing drones for the delivery of Domino's pizza. So yes, it doesn't matter what industry are you in. What matters is that can you actually use the technology to improve the customer experience? So in the old days, you pick up the phone, I would love to get my Domino's pizza. And then you wait. You don't know for how long, you don't know where the pizza guy is, you don't know how soon he will be at your place. And when he makes it to your place, you can't complain. Nowadays, thanks to digital transformation, you can order it, see where it is, see in how many minutes will it reach you, and then get it for free if it's more than 30 minutes. So as you see, things are changing rapidly, both outside the company and inside the company. So with all this change going on, how are your employees, how are we going to feel? Well, when I asked a friend of mine in Canada, he said that for a majority of employees, going to work every morning feels like going to the dentist. The worst feeling ever. So he's saying, I would rather, my people would rather go to the dentist than come to work on Monday morning for me. Why? Well, because like in the movie Office Space, there's a famous scene where they asking the guy, how is he doing at work? And he says, ever since I started working in this company, every new day has been worse than the one before. That means that every time you see me, that was the worst day of my life. So today was really bad, but tomorrow is going to be even worse. And then tomorrow is going to be even worse. Okay, so these two were quite funny, but do we actually have proof that these things are going on in our companies? Well, unfortunately, we do. Because every couple of years, one of the biggest research companies in the world, Gallup, is doing the Gallup State of the Global Workforce. And these are the results. So 13% of employees are saying that they are engaged. So they love what they do, they give their 100%, and they perform. Only 13%. 63% said we are not engaged. So we could do better, we could do more, we try to slack a bit. So we're not giving our best, but we're still working. However, 24%, which is almost double the number of those who are engaged, said we are actively disengaged. That is a euphemism for I hate you, I hate my job, I hate my company, I'm going to sabotage you, I'm going to work against you, and I would like the competition to win. In order for you to better understand this, let's take into account the football club, football team. So 11 players, one is a goalkeeper. We'll leave the goalkeeper off. So 10 players on the field playing football. One is engaged. So one is giving his 100%. He would love to score. He would love to win. 7 are not engaged. So they are on, they're playing, they are trying to win, but they're not giving their best. And 2 of them actually hate you. They would like the opposing team to win. So they are even trying to score an own goal. So you have one guy trying to score a goal and 2 guys trying to score own goals. There's no way you can actually win. And in business, we have this situation. We have twice the number of people who are actually sabotaging us. So when you ask the managers, why is this happening? They will tell you, well, people are lazy, they don't want to work, and so on and so on. But then you go to the managers and do the same research with them. And it shows that only 19% of managers are actually engaged. That's a bit better than the workers, but it's still very bad. So we have workers who are not engaged, and we have managers who are not engaged. And then you go to the manager and you ask them, do you know how to engage the people? And they are like, yes, of course. 77% says yes. We are able to engage them. We know what we are doing. But then you go to their people and you ask them, do your managers know how to engage you? And 82% says no way. They do not know how to engage us. So we have workers who are not engaged. We have managers who are not engaged. We have managers that do not know how to engage people. And we have managers who do not know that they do not know how to engage people. So how on earth is the situation as bad as this? Well, because this is what work looks like in most companies. And Peter Drucker, the most famous and influential management thinker in the world, says that most of what we call management consists of making it difficult for people to get their jobs done. And now take a look at a photo. There are 10 guys here, and the only one doing work is actually Andre. Just one poor guy digging the hole. But he has a HR manager, marketing manager, logistics manager, security manager, research and development manager. So there are 10 people around him, but only one poor guy is doing work. So this photo was taken from 9gag. 9gag is a famous website with humor photos. So at one point in time, I said, look, this might be a photo, a staged photo, not a real one. This might be actors. So I was thinking about stopping and not using this photo anymore. And then I was walking through the streets of Belgrade, the capital of Serbia, when I saw this situation. So I immediately took out my cell phone and I took this photo. So it doesn't matter what country you're in, America, Serbia, Montenegro, Kazakhstan. This is the way we organize our jobs. This is the way we structure our companies. And this is the management style we're using. The only difference might be the name of the guy. In America, he was called Andre. In Serbia, he might be called Andrea. And in Kazakhstan, he might be called Alin. But the model, the management model we are using is exactly the same. Why? Well, I'm now going to tell you a short story, a real one, a science experiment. So this is not a made up story. So there's a national park called Šumava between what used to be Germany and Czechoslovakia. At the time nowadays, it's Germany and Czech Republic. So at the height of the Cold War, they've built an iron curtain which went straight through the national park. So they've put one line of barbed wire, and then another line of barbed wire, and then another line of barbed wire. Then they put sentry towers. Then they put armed guards on sentry towers. So they've built everything that no living being can pass through this. However, in national parks, it's usually not humans, people who live there. It's usually animals. And the same goes for Šumava. So in Šumava, there is a herd of 300 red deer. And at the point in time when the Iron Curtain was lifted, one part of the herd stayed in Germany, and the other part of the herd stayed in Czech Republic, and they couldn't move. So this situation lasted until 1989, until the fall of the Berlin Wall, and then the Iron Curtain was torn down. So nowadays, this is a national park. This is a forest. There's nothing there to prevent the animals, to prevent the deer from crossing through the forest. When Czech Republic joined EU, there's not a border even. So now the deer can move freely from Germany to Czech Republic and back to Germany. So about a decade ago, scientists from a university in Czech Republic wanted to see how these deer are moving, the pattern of movement. So every deer was equipped with a GPS tracking collar around his neck. And they tracked their movement, their behavior for many years. Once the experiment was over, they analyzed the data. So what did they find out? Well, they realized that even after 25 years, the red deer still do not cross the old Iron Curtain. So if the deer at the beginning of the experiment was in Germany and they've put a GPS tracking collar, throughout the whole experiment, they never crossed into Czech Republic. If the deer was in Czech Republic, throughout the whole experiment, they never crossed into Germany. Why? Why do they do not cross the imaginary line, a line which is not there, something that doesn't exist? So Gauchar says fear. So they remember how it was way back then, and they are not willing to dare to try. That would be true. However, the red deer cannot live more than 15 years, 15. What does that mean? That means that not a single red deer who took part in this experiment has ever seen the Iron Curtain. And all those deer who have lived during the time of the Iron Curtain are already dead, already gone. They didn't take part in the experiment. So how on earth is it possible that an animal is not going to cross the line which doesn't exist and which he never ever saw in their lifetime? As Siljan said, genetics, that could be one thing, But the other more important thing is actually the way we are brought up, the way how we are raised. Yes, how we transfer knowledge to one another like ants do. When your mom takes you out in the woods and you try to cross the line, your mom says, do not go there. Why, mom? Well, because we have always done it this way. But why, mom? Ever since I was here, we don't go there. But why? Because my grandmother told me so. But why? Because her grandmother told her so. And because grandma and great grandma are not living, because they only live for 15 years, they do not know why they don't cross the line, but they still don't do it. This is the way most people typically behave within a business. We do not dare to cross the line. We do not dare to try new things. We do not dare, like Domino's Pizza is doing, use digital technology to help us improve, to help us grow our businesses, and to help us deliver the magical customer experience. Why? Because we've always done it this way. And because of what Gauhar said, because of fear. We are afraid that if we start doing things in a different way, it will not end good. So companies nowadays have internet-enabled business processes from 21st century. And it doesn't matter, are you in Kazakhstan, Montenegro, Australia, Brazil? We all have business processes which are digital, which are internet-enabled. What we also have are management processes, which are from mid-20th century. But the most important thing is the management principles, the paradigm we are actually building all these things atop on. And they are from late 19th century. So if you remember Henry Ford and the other guys, we are using the same management principles. Times have changed. More than a century has passed. We have digitally enabled all the processes within the organization. But the basic principles, remember the Andre digging the hole, have remained basically the same. And now that we know all of this, we know what's wrong. So how can we actually change these things? How can we actually re-engineer, reimagine our organizations, innovate our organizations for the digital age? So what's the future of management then? I told you already yesterday that I'm a big sci-fi geek. And from the famous book, Neuromancer, from William Gibson, there's a famous line which says, the future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. What does it mean? Well, it means that in every point in time, there are people, there are managers, there are workers, and there are organizations and businesses who are actually innovating, who are doing innovative things. It's just that we often don't know about it. So we don't know that a new version of an innovative digital version of reality is actually possible. So let's see companies, examples of companies who are actually already in the future, who are doing innovative things. If you're into management, you know what this is. Span of control is the number of people one manager can actually manage. He can actually control. So in the photo in the left, span of control is 4. So one manager can control 4. And then each one of these can control 4. So 4 can control 4 times 4, 16. 16 times 4, 64, and so on. On the photo of the right, the number is 8. So one manager can control 8 people. The number of employees in both companies, in both photos, is exactly the same, 4,096. What's different? The difference is the number of management levels and the number of managers you need. So for the company on the right, you need a lot less managers. The communication is more clear, more efficient, and more faster. When I was teaching management, psychologists and management theorists, scientists have said that 8 to 12 is the maximum amount of people one manager can control if he wants to be 100% efficient. If there are 13, 14, 15, 20, 25, 30, it's not going to be possible to control people. So if you have a team of 15 or 20 people, you need at least 2 managers. That's what the science of management and psychology said. So then one year, I was at a conference in Paris, and there was Marissa Mayer, who at the time was vice president of Google. And she said that the span of control in Google is 60. I raised my arm and I said, I'm sorry, you probably meant to say 16. And she said, no, I said 60. And I said, but managing 60 people is not possible. And she said, yes, you're right. And I said, but you said you're doing it. Yes, you're right. So you're telling me that managing 60 people is not possible, but that you are doing it. Exactly. How? Why? Because what we actually want to do is not manage our people. We overburden our managers so that they are not able to 100% control their people. When they cannot control their people, what do they need to do? They need to let go. They need to let the people do what they think is best. So then my job changes as a manager. My job changes from someone who controls people to someone who empowers people. So instead of telling you, you need to do this in this way, I'm going to ask you, do you need any help from me to get your job done? So I was mind blown. I was shocked that such a system exists. But then I realized that in General Electric's factory in North Carolina, span of control is 400. So the whole factory has only one manager and 400 employees. How? Because all 400 of them are engineers who know their business. They know how to do things. Now let's move on to Netflix. This has been widely reported in media all over the world, probably in Kazakhstan too. So you've probably read this in the papers or online or see it on TV, that Netflix has no vacation policy and no travel policy. This means that you can travel wherever you want and stay at your vacation as long as you want. Why? Because Netflix says we only employ fully developed, independent, responsible adults, which means that we are going to employ you if we actually trust you, if we believe in you, if we are certain that you are not going to use this against us, that you with your team can actually manage yourself. So the situation now is that the biggest company that produces software to track time of their employees has actually stopped tracking time for their own employees. So Kronos is making software that your company buys and tracks your time at work. When did you arrive? When did you leave? When did you take a break? How long did you take a break? How long have you been working? And so on and so on. So Kronos will sell you that software. But Kronos is actually not using this software for their own employees, because they're only employ people who they can trust. And now you're saying, okay, so this might work in maybe some software company or in Netflix, but this cannot work, for example, in a hospital or in air traffic control. Well, it turns out it can. Windsor Regional is a hospital in Canada which does the same thing for their workers. It offers unlimited vacation days. But it's not about the days. It's about trust. It's about putting your trust as a manager in your employees, and then your employees putting their trust in one another. So how do you actually decide on are you going to a vacation or not? You make a deal with your colleague. If I'm a surgeon and my colleague is a surgeon and there are only 2 of us in the hospital, I'm going to tell him, look, I would like to go on a vacation in the first week in August and stay for 2 months. I'm going to Kazakhstan. And he's going to tell me, whoa, that's perfect, because my wife would like us to go in the last week of June. So feel free to go and I will be here working. And then it's your turn. So you trust your team to be able to make decisions between themselves. If there are any gamers in the room, you know that Valve is one of the biggest platforms for the distribution of video games. But why is Valve important for us as managers and consultants is that Valve is one of the most innovative companies when it comes to management practices. So for example, Valve has a saying, your desk has wheels for a reason. And every single desk in Valve actually has wheels. Why? Because when you think you can contribute more to another team and you would like to start working for another team within Valve, the only thing you need to do is push your table with wheels to another team. And you say, hi, my name is Vladimir. I would love to work for your team now. And who decides if I'm going to work for them or not? The team themselves. They don't ask the manager. They, the team, decide, do they think that Vladimir will be able to help them or not? Buffer, if you're into social media marketing, social media management, digital marketing, you know Buffer as one of the most famous tools for social media management. Well, Buffer has made its whole team's salary public, completely public, and available on their website. So you can go to Buffer's website and you can see the salary of every single employee in Buffer. Why? Because they say they believe in this principle. Do not treat your employees like mushrooms. What does that mean? Well, it means do not keep them in the dark and do not regularly throw garbage on them. So if you want your employees to know, to be engaged, you need to put your trust in them. But now you're saying, look, these have all been high-tech companies. Is this even possible in a regular blue-collar company with regular workers? Well, yes, it is. Morningstar is actually one of the most innovative companies in the world when it comes to management. And the only thing they're doing is crushing tomatoes. So they're making tomato sauce, tomato paste, ketchup. Every single employee is responsible for buying the tools and the equipment he needs without even asking the manager. Why? Because the deal is you, the one who is chopping the tomatoes, you know what you need better than your manager. And now you're saying, okay, Vladimir, this is very good. But these have all been examples from the US. This is not possible in Europe or in Asia. Well, it is possible. It is possible everywhere. For example, this is a company from Netherlands, from Holland, which cleans office spaces. Their employees are cleaners. However, the management trusts them, and their saying is the person who sweeps the floor, the cleaner, should choose his own broom. I'm not going to tell you as a manager what broom, what equipment you need to use, because I don't know. I'm not sweeping the floors. You are. So you pick your own broom. Now let's go over to Asia, to India. So Infosys, one of the most digitally transformed companies, which is offering outsourcing services, business outsourcing services, reorganizes itself every 2 or 3 years in order to avoid systemic resistance. What does this mean? When do we usually reorganize our companies? When there is a crisis, when there is a big need to change. So what does Infosys do? They do not wait for the crisis. They change every 2 or 3 years. They transform every 2 or 3 years in order not to become red deer. Why? Because when you ask, why are we doing things this way? Everyone remembers, because we have changed it 2 or 3 years ago. So there's no situation where we can say, I don't know, but we have always done it this way. And now you're telling me, look, it's perfect, but this cannot happen in a communist country. A lot of my friends have actually told me the things you are saying cannot happen in a communist country. Well, they can. So it doesn't matter if you're a capitalist, communist, if you're a democracy, or whatever you are, what continent you are in, what industry you're in. Haier is a Chinese company that's making household appliances, white goods appliances, washing machines, refrigerators. And their style of management, their management practices are one of the most innovative in the world. They have 70,000 employees. And their management practices are so innovative that people consider it and call them 70,000 person startup. The whole company is actually a set of 4,000 micro companies, micro enterprises. And each company is responsible for their own profit and for their own market. So what does the corporation do? What does the headquarters do? Well, they are the platform for their micro companies, for their entrepreneurs working inside the company to actually build upon. So you figure out what is the business idea. You figure out what is the market opportunity. And then you build a prototype. Or first you have the business idea. Then you call the headquarters, the company. If they think it's okay, if they like it, they will give you a small amount of money, seed money, for you to build a prototype. So you and your team build a prototype, and then you show it to your platform, to the corporate sector. And then if they like it, they will give you more money, more people, and more production facilities to make the pilot available on the market as a limited edition. And then if that works out, the platform, the corporate, will give you even more money and more production facility, so you can launch your product as a fully featured, commercially available product anywhere. So in fact, it's not one company with 70,000 employees. It's actually 4,000 micro companies with roughly 15 people in each company working as micro small companies. So that's how innovative they are. And now you have heard all these innovative stories from different countries around the world and different companies. But there's one company in Brazil called Semco, and their CEO is actually doing all of these things in one company. So they have no job titles, no dress code, no organizational charts. Every employee is free to set their own schedules and own production quotas. All the information, financial information is public. He has published a book, best-selling book called Maverick, and he has done a couple of TED Talks. So all TED Talks are publicly available for free on YouTube. So I suggest that once we are done, you go to YouTube and you type Ricardo Semler and you see how innovative when it comes to management this company actually is. So my final thoughts. Let's go back to the border, to the national park between Czech Republic and Germany. And remember those red deer who didn't dare cross that imaginary line, which is actually does not exist. So my final words for you are: try not to be a red deer. Try to not be afraid. Try to dare. Try to change something in your businesses and actually try to cross that line. Thank you. And now I'm ready to accept your question, and let's make this a discussion, as Alim already said in the chat box.
Thanks a lot, Vladimir. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly.
Good. Thanks a lot for so interesting and insightful presentation. So many
I'm glad
cases. Even I got to my own business, like many thoughts to think about. Okay, dear friends, yes, please prepare your questions. So basically, you can write them down, or I would love to ask Vladimir. Maybe since we don't have so much time, like 15 minutes left, maybe we can allow people to turn on the microphone and say it, since it's a workshop, it's kind of limited. Okay, so here's the first question. Here's the second one. Let me say them. So the first from Aseljan: do you think our education system will become fully digital in 10 years?
As I said, I've worked for 12 years in the education department, and then I made the break for about 3 or 4 years, and now I'm working for 2 more years, and I will be working for some time. So I know all the pain that people who are in the education sector are actually doing. Let's say, thanks to this pandemic, we are finally starting to think about changing the education system. The education system has probably been the least changed aspect of our society. So yes, we are going through a lot of pain points right now. It's not easy going to school or going to university in a fully digital mode at the moment. If you have kids, it's especially challenging. But I think that this will finally be the opportunity for us to make a blended system of learning. So we will have a residential aspect where we actually go to school, go to university, but we will also have the online aspect. I do not believe that we will have a fully digital system. I do not think that it would even be good for us, because I actually do believe that the human aspect should be there. So what I hope for is, let's say, a blended version of residential learning and online learning.
Okay. I think so too. So yeah, good to prove own thoughts. Okay, thanks a lot. The second one: what is the second thing after the ability to change is important for business development?
The point, let's say, the first thing is that you need to dare. So the first thing is not to change. The first thing is that you dare you show no fear. You show courage that you want to change. Then the second thing is to actually change. And then the third thing would be to see what business are we in? What does our customer actually need and value? Then see what kind of product or service can we actually offer. Then try to use digital. Try to use digital technology in a way to help you become more efficient and to make the customer experience better. And then finally deliver it.
I will take my rights as a moderator. I'd love to add one more small question here, Vladimir, concerning this ability. I think a lot of depends on the CEO, on the director. So how to overcome this fear, I don't know, the feeling of danger when you basically think that you have to change. Usually it's much easier, it's comfort zone. You would love to stay in there, but you understand it. What should be done to overcome this fear? If is any one advice, I mean.
There are two situations. The first one is the ideal one where the CEO is actually the person who wants to make changes. Let's say that's the easy one. The realistical one is where the CEO or the top management are actually the ones who do not want to make change. So let's say my idea, or what I have been doing for the 12 years at the university, which was a state-owned university, so very bureaucratic, very hierarchical, was to actually try and find colleagues who pretty much think the same way as you do. So make a small group, 2, 3, 4 people, and trying to find the smallest possible, like literally the smallest possible thing you can change in order to make your company work better. And then you do it. And then you go to the CEO and actually show what you have done and what were the results. But the smallest possible thing. And then hopefully the person in charge will say, okay, let's try another very small experiment. So the smaller they are, the better, because even if you fail, the consequences for the organization are not going to be that big.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. One more question from Aidana. Can digital technology pose a threat to consumers? To consumers, yes. Can digital technology pose a threat to consumers?
Let's say on one hand side, digital technology is enabling consumers to do much more than they used to. So they have more choice and they are more in charge of making purchase decisions. However, on the other hand side, there are situations where maybe going fully digital, for example, we've already mentioned education at the moment, are actually not the best way to go. I had a situation with a client, a big bank, a big, let's say, regional bank working in 5, 6 countries around Montenegro, who was going through the process of digital transformation. And they wanted to show me their newest branch. And they told me that even though it has gone like 95% digital, it's operating worse than it used to. So I went to see what was wrong, and I was looking, and the one thing I could realize is that there was just one teller. So one lady working at the window dealing with people. In the old days, there were 5. So I asked them, like, what happened to those 4? And they said, oh, that's where the digital part comes in. We have put ATMs, websites, and different things, and we have enabled people to do all the banking services fully digital. And I said, look, but it's no wonder why your business is going down. And they were like, why? But we're digital now. You can be digital as much as you want. But if your clients are not 100% proficient with digital skills, if they are, let's say, older citizen, if they prefer to go to a bank and talk to a human person and collect money from them, and not use the app, mobile banking, not go to a website, or I don't even have a internet connection, I don't have a smartphone, I don't know how to use computers, then obviously your business will go down. So digital transformation is a great thing, but you need to always keep in mind who your customers are and what their preferences are.
Okay, thanks for the full answer. Really interesting. Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. It's like 7 minutes. Next one from Zarina. What do you think about the theory of tier organizations?
I'm not sure what does she mean by tier or tire organization.
Actually, yeah.
I've put down my email address, so it's vanja@digitalizuj.me. So all the questions we have not answered, or all the additional questions you might have, so feel free to reach out and I will gladly answer all of them. I've seen that Madina has also said, what kind of books would you provide? Just email me and I will send you a list of books I like and I think would be beneficial to you.
Yeah, Zarina put kind of explanation, but it's in Russian, Biruzovy company. Okay, I'm not sure actually how to, I know what is, okay, let's skip it. So yeah, I think we can prepare the answer later through the email. The next one is, Aidana put it actually in 2 ways, and thanks a lot. Here's a question. Which companies cannot restart in the digital age? Or basically, which of them are not ready for this?
I believe, and I honestly, truly believe that it's not a question of what country you are in. It doesn't matter what, let's say, what religion you are. It doesn't matter, as I've said, are you a democracy or whatever. It doesn't matter what industry you are. The only thing that matters is, can you, with your team, empathize with your customers, think the way they are thinking. So try to look your business from their shoes, their point of view, and then think of what are the ways you can actually use digital to improve the customer experience. So for example, one thing, like, let's say toilet paper. That's the thing where you would say there is absolutely no way you can use digital to improve customer experience. And toilet companies can either work in the old-fashioned way, and that's it. There's no way to go digital. Well, there is. There's a company called Charmin. It's one of the biggest producers of toilet paper in the US, which actually made an app, a smartphone application, that tracks, it's like Google Maps for toilets, like Yandex for toilets. You can see from where you are right now, where is the nearest toilet to you, and then you can rate it from 1 to 5 and put comments. If you're a restaurant, you can use digital for delivery, as we've mentioned in the Domino's Pizza case. If my friend is a psychologist, when the pandemic started, she couldn't do her therapy sessions any longer. However, the only thing she needed was a Zoom account. So now, since the pandemic has started, because unfortunately the mental health part is a huge issue nowadays, her business is actually booming. So I don't think there is a single business that could not make best use of digital.
Okay. Actually, Vladimir, toilet issue is really important, and relevant for Kazakhstan, not just in terms of finding the right one, but in terms of infrastructure. But yeah, great idea. Here's Gauhar actually mentioned that we need this kind of app. I think we have the last one, if you can make it pretty short.
Yeah, okay.
This one, sorry. How many years will it take for a company and business in general to go digital?
The one thing we need to have in mind is that all the things I've been talking, So digital wise or management wise, innovations when it comes to management. We need to realize that this is not a one-time project. So this is not something that we do in a half a year or 1 year or 5 years and we are done and we do not need to change or innovate anymore. We need to realize that this is a process. So this is a thing that never ends. You can become, let's say, fully digital in today's term within a couple of years. But in 5 years, let's return to the story of Madonna and Cyndi Lauper, you will already be left behind. So I'm the one who thinks that small, incremental, everyday small changes should be done when it comes to innovation and when it comes to transformation, and not like one big 3-year project.
Okay. 1 minute left. So thanks a lot, Vladimir.
Thanks
a lot for the participants. Hopefully we're going to meet offline, and I can imagine how happy and lucky your students and clients are, since you are providing so many insightful things and difficult things in a pretty simple words. Really appreciate the participation. Thanks a lot. Maybe just a few last words from you and we can finish up.
Thank you a lot. It was really a pleasure. Like, these 2 days were fantastic. The audience was really engaged. As I said, my email is there. Please feel free to email me. I'm sure there are a lot of questions that we didn't have enough time to answer. So feel free to email me, stay in contact. I hope we will be able to do Go Viral live next year. And when it comes to your organizations, please try to dare. Please try to change at least one small thing, innovate, and then build up on top of that. Thank you all.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. Thanks everyone, and bye-bye.
Bye from Montenegro.